Okay, this video is going to show you how to edit registration details. Yeah, once you've registered, usually handy to allow someone to edit what they've set up as their details. We're not going to let them change their login name, but we are going to let them remove passwords, change passwords, that sort of thing, and their display name and their image, because we've got an image. I'm using that one. If you haven't got an image in your registration details, just ignore that bit. Okay, so this is just going to be using my system, my basic registration system. Don't blindly copy it. Okay, right. What we're going to need to do in our main homepage, we need to give the user a chance to click on a link that, instead of registering, we should make it so they can alter their registration details. Okay, so I'm going to add from my toolbox. That's on my toolbox. Fine. From my toolbox, I'm going to add a link, a hyperlink for this, and I'm going to sit it just above where my image box is. Okay, by default, I'm going to make it invisible, this hyperlink. Okay, so I'm going to, well, let's do it through the properties window because it's slightly easier. So I'm on the hyperlink and I'm going to say visible false, and if someone's logged in, I'll make this link visible. Now the other thing I want to do is set this to go to a particular page. Okay, so we want it to go to the registration page. So if you look inside the hyperlink code, we've got this navigate URL, but again we can set this, we can set this on the properties window. Okay, so navigate URL, depending on how you got that set up, that's the one you're looking for, and it'll bring up pages that are in our website. So I've got register.apx, that's what I want to run. Okay, now we've already built a form with all the text boxes and validation, so we're going to make use of it again. Alright, then that's added. You can see in my code window the link to the register page, but I'm going to do this, and I'll explain what that means. That is what we call a query string. Now that allows me to pass information to a web page which I can then examine. So I'm going to run this web page and I'm going to give it this thing called A, this query string variable called A, and I'm going to set its value to edit, and I can pick that up. So if I see that I'm in edit mode, I want to do something different. Okay, so let's have a look at what else we need to change in here. So if we go to view code for the default page, when a user's logged in, if we look at the start bit in the page load, we need to make sure that that hyperlink, which I left as hyperlink 1 I think, so you need to make sure you put a proper name for that. I don't want to find anyone with names like this in their project code. Okay, you need proper names. So I'm doing that on purpose and I can catch you out. So I'm going to change the visible property to true. Okay, so by default it's hidden. When we're logged in, we want to make it visible. Let's just check that that works. Okay, so I shouldn't see this link. It needs its text changing as well. I just want to get the code together. My server's starting up. Right, so it's nothing visible there, so I'm going to log in. Go, is it DAS? Log in now. I think it's UU. I'm going to log in as UU. There you go. And there you go, there's the hyperlink visible. Okay, if I click on it, it'll just take me to the registration thing by default. I haven't changed that bit yet, so. Right, let's change the text on the hyperlink. So select the hyperlink, go to properties. If properties is misbehaving, click on the hyperlink again. Right, so this is going to be edit registration details. I'm going to type. Okay. Right, that's all we need to do on the default page. Let's go to the register page. Right, what we need to do is look for onload complete. Okay, if that doesn't exist in your system, so let's just assume, I'm just going to cut that. If it doesn't exist, if you haven't got an onload complete, you can create it by saying protected override and then search for onload complete. Okay, so you can do that if you haven't got one, but I've already got one in mine. It's not there by default, don't know why. Right, the code we've got current in that is to put some admin controls on, and then we finish off the loading code. Now we want to do something after that. Okay, what we want to do is check to see if that query string has got anything in it. Okay, so we're going to put some comment in here so we know what we're doing. We're going to say check or edit mode. Okay, so we're going to say if, and then we request the query string value A, because that's what we set. Now let's go back and just prove that. In default, where we had the navigate URL, we said A equals edit. Now keep it short because you don't want to pass too much data. So we say if request A equals edit, and this is important, and we haven't refreshed the page. Now the reason we have to put that in is because you might upload an image, you might alter the image that's displayed. Okay, and if you do that, that's going to cause the page to refresh. And what we're going to do here is we're going to load up the current user's details into all those text boxes. So what we don't want to do is, if we change the image, we don't want to re-upload all the details of the user, because that'll overwrite any other changes we make, including the image. Okay, so we just check, we say as long as we haven't posted back, fill up all these boxes. Alright, well, we have got a couple of problems. We had to make sure we had a unique login name, so we had a validation routine for that, so I need to disable that. Okay, so I'm going to say VD, and then I'm going to find it, so unique login name, and I'm going to say enabled equals false. Such an easy way of turning validation off. Okay, what we're also going to do, we're not going to let them change their username, their login name, but we are going to show it, so we need to disable that. So tx login name dot enabled equals false. Okay. Then what we need to do is get hold of the user details, so we're going to need to store those in a data view. So we're going to say data view dv equals get you data.get user reg details. Okay, now that doesn't exist, so I'm going to create that. Now it's moaning about data view, which means this isn't defined this. So if we scroll up to the top where we've got our libraries, we actually have to include another library. So using system.data. Okay, so we had that library in. Right, now we can create this. So we're going to say generate property. Okay, and that's going to get all our registration details. Okay, so let's go there and fill that in. So that's just going to query the database. So by default there's nothing much in there, so we're going to do a get. Okay, so I've just edited that, tidy that as well. And all we're going to do is we're going to create a simple query that's going to say select star, because it's so simple I'm going to put it all on one line, from my table's called table user, remember, where the user ID, now let's have a look at my server explorer so I get these right. So my user ID equals question mark, my parameter. Okay, so let's create a parameter collection. PC equals new parameter collection, pc.add, new parameter, and this parameter is going to come from our storage area. Okay, so the parameter is called question mark. It's a number, so type code is int32, and it's going to come from storage.user. Well, I call mine user ID, and I remember I have to turn all these into strings, otherwise the parameter system's not happy. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run my execute and fill helper. Remember, that runs a SQL select query for me with those parameters. Okay, so that's going to just say get all the details for a user, for the currently logged on user, which is what we want. Okay, so back to our registration code. Now, once we've got that data, I'm not doing any error checking here, but we might want to do that in future. We want to set up our text boxes, so we're going to show what the login name is. So we're going to set the text property equal to, I'll do it in another way actually, so it's consistent. So I'm going to say dv naught. Remember, naught is the first row of data. There should only be one. Now my login name was flogin name, and I'm going to convert it into a string. Okay, all of these, because they're going in text boxes, have to be converted into a string. So the next one, I want tx password dot text equals dv naught, and that was f password in my one, to string. Now I've got a confirm password, so I should set that to the same value. Password dot text. Okay. Right, the other information I want. Pardon me. Oh dear. The other information I want to display is what their visible name is. That's what I call mine, visible name. That's their username, not their login name. Okay, in my system. So that's going to come from for name, I called it in the database. Right, and then the last thing I want to set is the image. So my image on my page, image.image URL equals, right, we might have a problem, and there might be users that haven't set a picture, and sometimes you get these null values. So I'm going to check, and I'm going to do it in a really efficient way. So I'm going to say is db null. Okay, so I'm storing something, but what I'm using is what we call a trinary operator, the question mark. And this says if this is true, set a default image to show. Now looking at my Solution Explorer, in my resources folder, I've got loads of images and I'm just going to pick a default one, which is going to be that rectangle. So it's just going to be a stupid rectangle, but you should have something more sensible that's got something written on it, to be honest. So it's going to be resources / rectangle.png. Okay, right, so that's if this is true. So if I've got a null value, do that, and then you put a colon and say, right, what is the actual, if it was okay. So I can say db naught picky to string. Okay, so that's a compact way of doing an if when you want to store a value. I could have done if db naught.picky is db null, then I could have said image URL equals this bit, else image URL equals that. So it's just a nice compact way of doing that. Okay. The other thing I want to do is, if it's an admin, I want to be able to show the admin details. Or maybe I don't. Maybe I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to show the admin details at all. Or maybe I should. I think I will. Okay, so I'm going to start. So this is just same code that I used before. Storage dot access level equals admin, and I'm storing whether they were a normal user or not. then dd access dot text equals admin. Okay, so I'll set them to an admin. The other thing I'm going to do, I've got my registration button. I'm just going to change the text on it so it reads different. So I'm going to say bt.register.text equals update details. So I'm actually manipulating elements of the page to make it look different under these circumstances. Okay, so let's just see if that works. So if we go back to default and run it, hopefully it'll work. We haven't got any code to do the update yet, but we've got, it should load up our details. So I'm going to say you login, edit registration details, and there you go, it's filled it in. Screen name Dave, password, and there's the silly rectangle because there was no picture for this user. Okay, and it says update details on the button. Okay, right, so that's that part done. Now what we've got to do, when we click that update button, okay, so let's have a look at the page designer, view designer for register. When I click on this, currently I'm running this code. Okay, now if I'm doing an update, I don't want to do a new record. Okay, I want to change the current record. So what I'm going to do is in here I'm going to say if, and I'm going to have a look for that query string value again, request a equals edit. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to run a subroutine called update details instead of this one. Okay, so that means what I've got to do, I've got to say else, and then all of this code, so I scroll down, all of this code has got to go in the else part. Okay, so I've just put a brace above and a brace after the response.redirect code. Okay, right, let's create the update details thing. I've found a shortcut for this. If you do Control K and then press M on its own, it'll create the subroutine for you. So that saves you having to right click and go generate. Okay, so if we go to that now, we're actually going to create a new type of query. We're going to do an update query, which is going to look similar, okay, every time we do one of these. So string SQL equals, so this is an update, so we're going to say what table we're updating, so TBL user, and then the format of this is to say set, and then we put each thing that we're going to set. So we've got f login name equals a question mark, put a comma and leave a space before the next one. I've got f password in case they change that equals question mark, comma, space, f status equals question mark, or let's not change the status, let's just ignore that one. Okay, so they can't change their status in this one. For name equals question mark, comma, and make sure that space is there or you'll get an error. Okay, the final one is going to be the picky. Okay, so that's all the details I'm allowing them to edit. Okay, right, we then need to put a where in there, and I'm going to say where user ID equals, and this time I'm not going to put a parameter, I'm going to show you a different way. So I'm going to say storage.userid, and that's it. Okay, so we're saying update the details from the, eventually from the text boxes for the current logged on user. So that hopefully will stop people doing stupid things. Now, I need to set the parameters, and I should be able to just steal the parameters from our other code. So let's just copy the whole block first. So I've just gone up to my registration insert, copied the parameter settings to try and minimize errors, this, remember. Right, I don't want the new user ID, so the first thing I want is login name. So there's login name from the text box. Then I've got password. I'm not doing the admin status, so I don't need that. Then I've got forename, which is the visible name, and then I've got the image. So I've only got 1, 2, 3, 4 items that I'm changing. Right, then we're going to use our data execute update. So we're going to run that SQL with those parameters, hopefully. When we finish that, what we ought to do is change our storage name. So we can say storage dot name, my display name this is. So I'm just updating that just in case it's been changed. So my visible name dot text. I don't need to update anything else because the user ID is not changed and the status hasn't changed. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to send them back by using response.redirect to the home page, which mine is called default.aspx. Okay. Now that should be all we need to do. Okay, let's go back to default and run this and just see if it works. So I'm going to log in as that UU one, and I'm going to change the UU. So that logs in as Dave. So let's edit that. I'm going to call himself Dave Block, and I'm going to change my password to Sensible. Yes, I know the passwords don't match. And I'm going to pick an image for this geezer, and the image is going to be a shiny ball. So I'm going to say, click on that. Never put any text on that button. There you go, it's updated. Let's now click on update details. Hopefully we go back to the main page. Oh, we got an error. Let's have a look. Set F login name, F password. I'm trying to find the error. It's not leaping at me. Right, let's just. Okay, so let's look at it. So we've got update table user, that's the right name. Set, got space after that. Login name's right, password's right, full name's right, pick is right. So it's none of them, and its user ID is that. So let's check all these commas and spaces and question marks. So we've got login name equals question mark comma space, password question mark comma space, full name question mark comma space, picky question mark comma space. Oh, that's the problem. Look, I don't want a comma. There isn't another field to set. Okay. So that was a silly mistake. So let's just run it again from default. See if I can edit Dave Bloke again. So I'll log on as UU. Log in. Edit registration details. Dave Bloke. Password to sense. I don't want it too long, otherwise I'll never be able to do it. I'm going to change the picture to that shiny ball again. Upload it. Update my details. There we go. Let's come back. Welcome back, Dave Bloke. If I click on edit registration details again, it's gone. Okay, and that's it. That's editing. You can use that exact same technique if you create like a product page to do the editing. It saves you having to create loads of validation and text boxes and things again.